Guys, it's finally here, the painting process for my final piece of the 20 Illustrations Challenge from 2023, featuring the theme Creatives. If you don't know what this challenge is about, you can go watch this video where I explain all the fun details behind it. So as this was the last piece of the puzzle, I wanted to go all out for it. I wanted this vast scene full of lots of little vignettes to look at. Almost like a hidden object illustration where you have to look pretty closely to see all of the little elements and all of the little characters. For the creative theme, I decided to paint the Marquee Meadow Market, a place where all the meadow folks come together with their many talents and goods to share with one another. This scene where everyone's encouraging one another and appreciating their unique gifts. This illustration was heavily inspired by the super sweet and encouraging messages you've all sent me, as well as your own talents that you've shared with me. I always love seeing your artwork and hearing your poems and your stories and your music. I love that no matter where our gifting lies, we can all see the good in each other's skills and appreciate what everyone has to offer. So let's chat a little bit about the painting process. I definitely bounced around a lot in this illustration, trying to work up different elements of the scene kind of simultaneously early on. Painting in a lot of the background trees and lights, building up the ground plane with lots of color variations and some plant life, and working in the warm glow of the booth lights. Sorry for the missing footage from the beginning of the painting.
I have no idea what happened. I probably just forgot to hit record. I don't know. It happens.
But anyways, I had a bit of a color key to work off of, but I wanted to get a lot down on the page fairly quickly. I feel like my painting process changes literally every time I start a new painting. Sometimes I like to get these big washes of color down over the whole page just to kind of knock out all of the white space, and sometimes I work section by section, almost fully rendering out one element at a time. I don't know, I think some paintings just call for a different process. And speaking of process, I just finished Justin Donaldson's gouache course, and a lot of the techniques he taught us would have been so helpful to know for this illustration. For example, Justin talks a lot about the saturated stage of paper when it's fully soaked and you can get a lot of really beautiful blends and lost edges. And when it's fully soaked, you can work on it for like an hour without it drying out. So at the time I painted this, I had absolutely no idea that that was a thing, so I just swipe a few brushstrokes of water across my page and try to speed paint my way through the blending process, thinking that that was saturated paper. And let me tell ya,
it was not.
Anywho, there are so many things that I've been making needlessly difficult because I didn't know that there was a better way or a better process for it. All that to say, I'm really excited to play around more with what I learned in the course, and I don't know, maybe we'll have to revisit the Marquee Meadow Market for like a sequel painting sometime this year and bring in some of those new techniques. For this illustration, I used some Knicker poster colors, and y'all, I am loving this gouache. I really love to work thickly with gouache, and because there's so much of it in each container, I feel a little bit less stingy when I'm mixing up my colors and when I'm laying them down. It's just got a lot of body to it, and I don't know, it just makes me really happy to work with. I love to see those big, juicy brush strokes. If you're a gouache user, I'd love to know if you prefer to work more thickly and opaquely or more thinly and transparently. Or, I don't know, maybe somewhere in between. I am trying to be braver about using gouache in a variety of different ways, but I don't know, man, that thick stuff is definitely my favorite.
It's just got a lot of oomph to it.
The one thing I'm still navigating with Knicker gouache is the light-fast quality of each color. For example, a lot of their reds are more in the okay to poor light-fast range. Basically, this just means that they're going to fade a lot quicker over time. I'm trying to figure out how exactly I feel about that. This does make a difference, especially when selling originals. I either want to use only colors that I know aren't going to fade when selling originals, or be fully transparent if I have used a color that might fade over time. The reality is, no painting is going to last forever, but I don't want to sell someone a painting that's going to look completely different in 4 years' time. That's kind of why I like selling prints, because the file doesn't change. I scan a painting I've finished, and I can make a print that looks exactly like the original painting indefinitely. And speaking of prints, I'm running a print pre-order spring sale through March 31st. Now I know a lot of you missed getting some prints that you were wanting during my last sale, so with the pre-order option, you'll be able to collect any print you want. I've also added some new print designs to the shop, including this Marikey Meadow market piece, as well as a new Marikey Meadow sticker. You can use the code SPRING24 for 10% off your order, and each order will of course come with some thank you goodies. You can head on over to my shop via the link in the description to grow your cozy art collection, and without further ado, let's get back to the painting. So let's take a closer look at some of these characters and what they've brought to the market. In the way background, we have the Tipping Tinkered, where you can grab a pint of the best apple cider the Marikey Meadow has to offer. This particular part of the painting was a bit of a test in how much I could communicate without spending too much time or painting too many details. I think this part took me around 20-ish minutes to paint. I wanted this little squirrel up on top of the barrel, pushing on the little spout to fill the cups. I like the way his little tail curls over the edge. I haven't painted a ton of squirrels for the Marikey Meadow yet, so I'm not super familiar with their anatomy. Definitely something I want to work on. Animal anatomy is so crazy because literally every type of animal is shaped so differently. Anywho, we also have a happy little bunny selling her hand-painted wooden ornaments, and of course, Bobbles with his wagon of baked carbolicious goods. He's got baguettes, he's got sourdough loaf, he's got muffins. If you want some carbs, bready or not, here he comes. Not gonna lie, I think Bubbles and his bread wagon is my favorite part of this painting. Y'all know I love painting bread, and I don't know, I have a soft spot for Bubbles. He's just such a tender and thoughtful little guy, and I don't know, he always makes me smile. He also has this little list of everyone in the meadow's favorite baked goods. For example, Fergus the fox is particularly fond of Pano chocolate, but not just any chocolate. His favorite Pano is made with the cacao of the Criollo tree, which is a delicate and darker variety. Now, of course, Fergus would happily eat any Pano, but because this kind is his favorite, Bobbles bakes this very special Pano with the very special Criollo chocolate every Tuesday morning for Fergus. So next up is Todd Littlehoof, the best knitter in the meadow. From hats to gloves to blankets and scarves, Todd's got you covered. I absolutely loved painting Todd and his little wheelchair. This was an element of the painting I'd been imagining for literal months before I got around to sketching it. I really wanted the wheelchair to have that kind of rustic, kind of foresty look to it with lots of little wonky branches. I had originally intended to paint some greenery throughout the wheels, and I totally forgot about it. I don't know, maybe in the future. Kind of disappointing, but I feel like I always have something else I want to add, but I totally forget about it during the final sweep through of the painting, and then 2 weeks later, I'm like,
Dang it, that would have been so cool!
Anywho, it's fine. It's fine. There'll be more paintings in the future. So moving on, in the lower left corner, we get a little peek at Bits's dried flower bouquets. I wanted her to be out and about shopping in this scene, so like she and Bubbles could be waving at each other from across the market, but I also didn't want to leave out her beautiful bouquets, so I don't know, she's just taking a break to peruse the other stalls. Looks like she's got a pretty good deal today though, 2 acorns per bouquet.
You know, that's kind of a steal.
So moving on to the other side of the market, we have Sir Fergus the Fox with his many books. You might remember Fergus from the library illustration and the spooky illustration from last year as well. He's the local librarian, but he's also a very well-known meadow author. Every market he brings out some of the books he's written and bound himself. Bits just picked up his latest collection of poetry called Stepping Stones. It also looks like she might have made a trip to the popcorn stand, amongst other things. Bits is kind of a shopper. And of course, Miss Totter the Otter has brought out her delicious pies and pastries. Her chocolate chip cookies are to die for, y'all.
Her secret? A double dash of cinnamon and an extra sprinkle of salt.
This piece was a really fun challenge for me for several different reasons. Number one, it's a night scene, and I don't typically paint those. But I've always loved the idea of night markets, and I think lanterns and fairy lights just bring a sort of magic to a scene, and, you know, they just do not look as cool in the daytime. I wanted this piece to feel good and to feel magical, and I really felt like painting it as a nightscape would be the best way to do that. Number two, there's a lot going on in this one. I always love including lots of little things to look at in my illustrations, but I particularly wanted this one to be something that like each little booth could stand on its own. Like you could zoom in on just one section of it and still have a fully finished painting. But to be able to show a lot of different booths, I went to battle with one of my greatest enemies: perspective. A moment of silence during my time of turmoil. Y'all, it was a struggle. Because each booth is sitting at a different angle, they all had different vanishing points. This was one of those times where I was incredibly grateful for the blessing of digital drawing software, where I could make a big old canvas, plot out a horizon line with all my different vanishing points. I think I probably would have cried if I tried to do all of this sketching traditionally. Number 3, I pushed the colors for this one a lot more than I usually do. Y'all know I tend to stick to a lot more earthy colors, lots of warmer tones. That warm kind of earthy palette is really my comfort zone. Obviously, I do paint with other colors sometimes, but it's not where I'm comfy. So going cooler with the night sky alone was challenging, but then I decided to throw in some big, bold colors. The ones I almost never reach for, like this kind of pinky magenta for Todd's booth. Again, I wanted to paint something really magical, and I really loved the idea of the booth lights kind of glowing through these brighter, poppier colored tents. It's possible that I cried while painting Todd's booth.
I don't know. I don't remember. Kind of blocked it out.
That pink gave me so much trouble. Trying to do the light math of how the warm fairy lights would change the color of the fabric. Yeah, it was a lot. I think we got mostly there in the end, but I did have to bring in some colored pencils once my gouache mixes got a little bit muddy. Anyhow, I think the biggest challenge with the colors was trying to use a lot of them, but still have the whole scene fit together. The more colors you add to an illustration, the harder it is to maintain a clear and appealing read. But one of the ways you can create some of that cohesion with, for example, the magenta, is by carefully placing it or some variation of it throughout the rest of the piece. Giving the little bear kid at the front a magenta sweater, painting some lighter pink triangles on Fergus's banner. I also did the same thing with Fergus's teal booth. It plays off of Bobble's bread wagon, the customer fox's scarf, and one of the blankets in Todd's booth. So by intentionally scattering these little bits of a bolder color throughout a piece, for one, it helps integrate it into the palette, and for two, it also helps lead your eye through the scene. Our eyes like to look for similar things, so we kind of subconsciously follow these little color paths throughout a piece. This illustration was a big step for me in my Murky Meadow art. I feel like I'm really starting to find a feel for how I want to paint the characters, the kind of shape language I want to use. Also, in learning more about each of the characters' stories. Every illustration helps me discover some new facet of the characters, and that's really exciting. Speaking of the Murky Meadow, I've been working on some new character sketches and illustration ideas that I'm so excited to share with y'all soon. It's been really fun just diving back into the Murky Meadow after having been away from it for a little bit. Now that I'm done with the gouache class, I have a bit more time for personal paintings. But we do have some other things going on as well. Let me catch you up to speed. Most exciting, new baby niece is healthy and happy and so stinking adorable. Auntie and niece are already best friends. Her Murky Meadow nursery is finally fully decorated, so that's an upcoming video you can be looking out for. I'm currently finishing up the nurture workbook, adding some final pages, fixing up the margins, making sure everything is spick and span. If you don't know what the Nurture Workbook is, it's a workbook I've built to help creatives nurture their creative practice. The goal for it is to, 1, help you identify what the biggest problem is that you're facing in your creative practice. Number 2, to help you use the resources and supplies you already have available to you. I get it, we're artists, we like to keep adding to our collection of supplies. But sometimes having too many options can be really overwhelming. Number 3, to help you set an enjoyable and achievable intention to nurture your creative practice. And number 4, to put in the work. It's 60 some odd pages of information and resources and journaling pages, as well as access to the Nurture Discord group where you can share your progress and get encouragement from other creatives that are nurturing their practice too. So my plan is to launch the workbook at the beginning of May, but if you want a little sneak peek at the workbook, you can download a few of the pages down in the description below. This way you can kind of get a feel for how it's set up and see if it's something you're interested in using. kind of a try before you buy thing. I've also been working on the next curiosity quest for the Curious Creatives tier on Patreon. The general consensus was that we need to explore values. We're talking lights, we're talking shadows, we're talking creating a cohesive value composition. I've really been wanting to dive deeper into values lately myself, and I'm so excited that the Curious Creatives wanted to also. It's always fun when our study interests kind of align. Speaking of the group, the first month has been absolutely fantastic. I've really loved getting to know everyone and to share our progress together. Y'all are absolutely crushing the stereometric sketches for sure. We've officially hit 20 members in the group, and it's been so encouraging to see everyone come together to learn and to grow in our art skills. It's also been such a joy to watch new friendships blossom in the group as we figure out the cool things we have in common. Another side of this is I've actually really loved leaning in more to teaching, surprisingly. Whenever people ask me questions about art or ask for my advice, I always feel a lot of imposter syndrome.
Like, there are literally thousands of artists out there far more skilled than I am, and you're asking for my opinion?
But I really have enjoyed teaching more, and it's made me more excited to learn myself. And everyone's been really gracious to me and courteous of the fact that I'm not a master. I'm just a random artist sharing my thoughts and opinions and trying to teach artsy concepts in a fun and creative way. And another piece of extremely exciting news, my all-time favorite candle company, Mythology Candles, reached out to me to try some of their new high cottage candles. So one of the new candles has already inspired a new painting, and I'm really excited to show you guys soon. I talked in this video on building your creative practice that it can be so helpful to set a mood for your practice, and one of my favorite ways to do that is with a candle. Different scents can evoke different emotions, different imagery, different headspaces, and I don't know, I think that's extremely cool. Anywho, this gift is exactly what I looked like when I got the candles in the mail. There was an extremely bougie thank you note with a fancy schmancy seal,
and I used a fancy schmancy letter opener to open it, and let me tell ya, I felt very fancy schmancy.
Anywho, I finally got to start working on the bookshop miniature kit that I got for Christmas, and I'm definitely going to be lighting the book nook candle while I work on it. So my plan is to revamp the kit to be Fergus's library, and guys, I am so excited. I've been working like crazy on all the businessy things, like the Patreon group and the workbook and yucky taxes. And I don't know, working on the miniature kit is such a fun way to kind of slow down and just make something. I think having creative hobbies that aren't directly related to what you normally do are really cup-filling and just good for your mind. So I got one of the bookshelves for it put together, might have superglued my fingers to it in the process. The hazards of miniature building, I tell ya. One of the things I really want to do with this kit is to make a little clay sculpture of Fergus. So I haven't tried sculpting any characters yet, just lots of food. Shocking, I know. But hey, you know, sculpting bread is very relaxing. Anywho, I still have some air dry clay left, and I also picked up a little pack of polymer clay. I'm not sure yet which one I'm going to use to make Fergus. I keep hearing mixed opinions on whether or not you should put polymer clay in your regular oven, or if you should use a dedicated, confectioner's oven. Is that what it's called? Confectioner oven? Or am I thinking of a toaster oven? I don't know. Anywho, some people are like,
No, bad! The fuse! You'll die if you use a regular oven!
And other people are like,
bro, it's non-toxic, just don't burn it.
So I'm confused and scared to try it. If you know the truth, please let me know. Anywho, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed chatting with me about the final piece of the 20 Illustrations Challenge, the Marikey Meadow, and the fun things I've been working on lately. The print pre-order and spring sale is going on in my shop through March 31st, and as I might be releasing new print designs throughout that time period as I make new paintings, you can place multiple orders. I won't be shipping out any of the orders until a week or so after the sale, so I can combine the orders and refund the excess shipping costs, provided they're going to the same address, obviously. If you're interested in joining us in the Curious Creatives tier for our deep dive into values in April, you can head on over via the link in the description. As always, the supplies I used for the illustration in this video are down there as well. Huge thank you to my pals over on Patreon for helping to support my art journey. Y'all are absolutely incredible, and I'm so grateful for you guys. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!